School's a lot different now.
Yes.
Than it was when we were going through. Imagine now being in junior high school or high school, and it's fourth period, and you're sitting there in your classroom, and you could be having a good time. You might be bored because the teacher's talking about the Renaissance era, or you're reading Jane Austen. And then all of a sudden, you hear over the intercom, this is a test, active shooter drill. And now you have to go from school mindset to now, how are you gonna hide? What are you gonna do? And that can be jarring for a lot of kids nowadays, especially in this day and age. So let's talk about it on today's episode of Breaking Formation. Welcome to Breaking Formation. Hey, we're upscaling. Breaking Formation. I don't know if you saw that in the last episode, but we now have it.
Yes, love it.
It looks pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Not bad. We're moving on up to the east side to a deluxe apartment in the sky. But let's get back to, you know where that's from?
Yeah.
All right, good. Oh, we're old. Anyway.
Yes, we are.
So today's episode of Breaking Formation, we're going to touch on some sensitive topics that may be triggering. We're going to talk about school lockdowns and active shooter drills. Viewers' discretion is advised. I'm your co-host, Merryl Tengesdal, retired Air Force Colonel. I'm here again with Shea Phinney.
Hello, how are you?
Resident child psychotherapist, therapist extraordinaire, has taught me a lot in the last couple of weeks. It's been awesome.
Yeah, it's cool.
On Breaking Formation, we're here to tackle challenges in today's information age, AI, social media, and we're here to give you some tools and some tips to deal with that for youth and well as the parents. So let's talk about it. School. School is different. There are really three main things that are happening. Mm-hmm. Drills, active shooter drills. It's not just the fire drill that we used to have. And, very recently, probably in the last 10 years, those type of activities have gone up quite a bit. Mm-hmm. And thank goodness I have not have been involved in that. But I think about it with my kids on a daily basis, the what ifs. Mm-hmm. The other thing that is happening right now is the introduction of AI. And AI it's great. It could be a great tool, but it can also be a terrible crutch that will allow you to fall down a flight of stairs if you use it way too much, or you abuse it, or you don't know how to use it. And in school, last but not least, is teachers, the shortages, the things. A lot of teachers are, well, not a lot. Some teachers, depending on where you live, are leaving the area, going to places where they get paid more, or just leaving altogether because a lot of times their hands might be tied. They have to deal with parents. And sometimes kids come to school maybe not as well-mannered as they were back in the 70s and 80s. Maybe not a lot of parent involvement. So these are three main things that I think are affecting how school is really different nowadays. Mm-hmm. Today we're going to focus on the active shooter one, and how that really has transformed the way schools act. And from a parent standpoint, from one that has two kids and one is in junior high school, one's in elementary, and will soon be going to high school, like that. Now that's on the forefront of my mind and in my head, and I know you have kids that are in high school right now. So active shooter drills, let's talk about what happens when someone's confronted with it, even in a drill format. What happens there for young adults? I mean, you've had, your kids will probably relay that information.
Yeah, so, I mean, I think that without going deep into the weeds around active shooter drills, I think that, we know that that's something common, something that we have to pay attention to. There is a legitimate threat out in our society and the world right now, which we do have to take into consideration, be mindful, and just grow our awareness around what are some of the likelihoods of things that could happen. And yes, probably in the last 5 years, we've increased the active shooter drills and safety drills and lockdown drills and all of those things. So yesterday morning, I was getting ready for work, and I was just scrolling through Facebook, and I follow a active law enforcment, scanner thing. I don't know what the heck it's called, scanner feed. And so it had brought up that there was active threats happening at my daughter's school, and the local sheriff was en route to the school. And so when I went to my daughter, I was like, "Hey, have you seen this? You're not going to school yet." And she was like, "No, I don't know about anything about that." I guess apparently it was all said and done. It was just an angry kid. He was throwing threats at the teacher, and making some vague threats. But they took it into consideration and were en route to assess the situation. So it is becoming more and more real, also using social media. People are posting things threat-wise to schools and things like that.
Which is wild, because, I went to school in the Bronx, and if you thought anyone could be threatening, it would be other kids, but no one would ever say, well, I won't say they'd never say anything to a teacher. I'll be honest, I got kicked out of my band class in my senior year for threatening my band. He said something very insulting to me.
Oh, you have to tell us the story now.
Okay, so I was playing, just for a little backstory, I played French horn. This is my 12th year, senior year. And he was talking about, I don't know how the conversation came up, but he was talking about handball, because he played handball in the Bronx. A lot of people play handball. I was one of them. But I also bowled. So I was a bowler. I've been bowling since I was 5 years old.
Oh, whoa.
Yes, little known fact. I've bowled forever.
All the hidden talents that you have.
Yeah, I won a scholarship when I was, anyways.
A scholarship in bowling?
I did. I won some money.
That's a thing. Okay.
It is a thing. So I was talking about bowling, and the music teacher was like, people who bowl are stupid.
Oh.
And so I kind of took offense to that.
Yeah, fighting words right there.
Well, yes. And I said, I probably said something like why I oughta, and I didn't finish it. And he was like, you should do what? And he started, and I got up, and he got up, and he's like, get out of my class. And I'm like, I will get out of your class. So he kicked me out. So he kicked me out my senior year. Yeah.
Yeah,
so
that's a good story, though.
Yes, now I'm embarrassed.
That's okay. It fits.
It fits really well. So, but I can't believe that a lot of kids nowadays will get on social media and make threatening comments. So when those occur, and when the school gets that, and then they start disseminating that out to parents, and parents are talking to their kids, what kind of response in general is happening with that child, with that knowing that this could be a day where it can go down?
So the other morning when the threat came out, a concerned student at our school, we have something called the Stop It app. It's basically an anonymous posting where kiddos can post or make reports to school and to law enforcement of things that they are concerned about. And so they can post it anonymously. So basically it's, if you see something, say something. And so kids are being very, very proactive in reporting things they see on social media, really taking into consideration their own personal safety by using this. I commend the school and the resources that are available for kiddos in this way, just because it kind of lessens the the threat of even reporting or saying something. I mean, I know for me back in my day, like if I saw something happening, I probably wasn't going to say anything because I didn't want to get bullied.
Yeah. So it's an app, the Stop It app. So
Stop It
we'll
app.
put that below and we'll
Call it out or whatever.
call it out. So I was gonna say we'll put it right there, but there's something there. So the Stop It app, I didn't even know that. So I will.
Yeah.
I'll download that and I'll put it on when my kids get a cell phone because
Yeah.
my son he's getting primed to get his own cell phone and I'm
Oh,
setting it
boy.
up. Yeah. Oh boy, indeed. So that's actually very interesting. So but just knowing that, like, what does that do to a student in theory, like how they feel? For some students that are a little bit more sensitive, or some students that have had relatives or other friends that have experienced that, what can that potentially do to them? And how can we help calm those reactions and those thoughts to get them focused on school?
So, it's interesting because as I was listening to you talk, I think, sadly, because of social media, because of the TikToks and things like that, we're also becoming desensitized to some of that stuff, which is a bummer. We're back, 5-6 years ago when they started the active shooter drills and things like that, or I think it was after, was it Sandy Hook that was in 2019 or something like that.
Yes.
And my daughter was in elementary school. I literally bought her a bulletproof shield to put in her backpack. Because it like just a piece of what is it called? Kevlar, just a piece of Kevlar. And a lot of my friends at that time were doing the same thing because the active shooter drills, teaching kids how to take care of themselves wasn't as prominent back then. And so this probably 2017, I think 2000. Yeah, I can't remember the dates, but so, and being really mindful of teaching my kiddo, like following videos. There's a local school here to us that actually teaches how kiddos can get out in active shooter drills, things that they can do for their own self, above and beyond what's being taught in the schools for active shooter drills. So definitely the culture is changing because now it's not just about learning the A's, ABCs and, the arithmetic and stuff like we used to do, but it's really learning how to protect yourself and take care of yourself in this crazy world we live in now.
Wow. Yeah, you bought Kevlar. Wow.
Yeah, I did. I was freaked out after I think it was Sandy Hook.
It was Sandy Hook in Connecticut because I had my alma mater is the University of New Haven, so I was working with some people during a time at my school who were affected by that. Mm-hmm. So
yeah,
they still talk. I mean, it still affects them. So
yeah, it was, and my kids were like, "You're weird, Mom," and I was like, "But I was working in corrections at that time, and I think that was a common theme between a lot of us in there was like, okay, how do we teach our kids to protect ourselves because they weren't teaching the active shooter drills yet."
So when they start doing active shooter drills on campus for most schools, it takes kids right out of their mental state for studying. Yeah. Some kids will not bounce back as quickly after those drills. Do you have any techniques or something that they can do, especially after the drill? Because I would assume that's going to weigh heavily on their minds. My kids never say that they're affected in any way, but I don't think they've really experienced it where they go to yet. So what are some things or some tools that you can maybe provide for them?
Well, I think what we can talk about too is anything that's triggering or overwhelming to the nervous system, right? So, when you're in school, when the teacher's up there lecturing, you're in a place of parasympathetic nervous system. You're in your parasympathetic nervous system. You're basically what's considered rest and digest. You're absorbing the information, you're taking it in, you're in this like kind of zen. I won't go into all the details, don't want to bore everybody, but there's a theory called polyvagal theory. Basically, it's identifying our fight, flight, and our freeze, our sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems. In the middle is our zone, right? That's like where we're like in Zen. It's really our what's termed the the window of tolerance. And we ultimately want to be there, every one of us. So for kiddos experiencing active shooter drills, for first responders going from call to call to call, for anyone that has high stress jobs, our bodies, our nervous systems are going to fluctuate from fight or flight. If we've had a lot of trauma in our lifetime, our bodies literally get stuck in our sympathetic nervous system, which is our go. We've talked about that a few times in here.
Yes.
Or can get stuck in the freeze, which is our parasympathetic nervous system shut down. But ultimately, we want to be in the window of tolerance where we're kind of vacillating back and forth. So when the active shooter drills go off, when kids are forced to under their desk or they're simulating the active shooter drills, the locking the doors, hiding behind the desks, all of those things, it raises our adrenaline, puts us in our sympathetic nervous system. Similar to even just being late to school and, running out of the house, putting your shoes on so you're not going to get be late and get your fifth tardy of the week. Basically, you're up in your sympathetic nervous system, right?
Right.
And again, when that happens, it basically hijacks our prefrontal cortex, our thinking brain, and puts us into a place of survival. So what that means is our blood pressure is raised, our adrenaline's going, we're in this state of alert. Basically, we're up and running. But it takes some time to come down if you don't practice it regularly, if you don't learn to regulate your nervous system.
So are there some things you could do? Deep breathing? Can teachers have students help kids breathe through it at the end of a lesson or not the lesson, but the drill, excuse me?
Yeah, no, that would be really a great practice to be involved in. And I think anyone in a high stress, high activation type situation, if learning to incorporate deep breathing and regulation practices in your daily routine is essential for regulating your nervous system. So I think teaching it so it becomes automatic or becomes a routine.
So for me, if I was a kid right now, it's hard for me to be in a adolescent position because I know when I go into a room or I go on a campus to see my kids, my mind is already thinking, oh, if something goes down, I can go here, here, mm-hmm. here. And
you are a trained first responder.
How I think of the what ifs. Mm-hmm. So is it something that kids should think of, the what ifs, sometimes to help calm them, or will that keep them at a heightened state? So I don't want to introduce anything that's going to keep them in that fight mode.
Fight, yeah.
Yes. So
I think, yes, teaching your kids to be mindful of their surroundings and their situations is super important. Okay. I think that because what ends up happening is it becomes regulated in the brain. It becomes, you don't have to think about it, right? So basically when we are so Dan Siegel talks about the triune brain. We've talked about that before, but I'm going to do my hand model, right? So brainstem, limbic system, amygdala, prefrontal cortex. So when we're just chilling in the classroom, we're in a full brain, right? We're just in there. But when a threat is introduced, real or perceived, it sends a signal to our amygdala that there's an actual threat, and it will send our prefrontal cortex and our cortex offline, and we are just in our survival brain.
Okay.
So we do need to work on bringing it back in. But if we have an integrated brain, we are still able to access our thoughts and then be able to regulate. So this is the lame example I use all the time. You're walking in the forest, a bear jumps out, your amygdala takes over and says, I have 3 choices here, fight, flight, or freeze. if you have a regulated brain, if you have trained for this bear jumping out in the forest, your brain says, okay, these are the things I could do. If you're not prepared, you're just going to, who knows what you're going to do? Yeah, I would probably run because I'm not thinking of, okay, a bear's probably going to chase me, or I'm just going to lay down and freeze and wait for the bear to eat me up. But if I have trained about being attacked by a bear, I haven't thought about bear attack, but I have thought about like a coyote or a pack of coyotes when I'm out with my dogs. Weird random things that you think about is like, where would I go? What tree would I climb? What self-defense tool am I going to carry with me? Same thing with kids in active shooter drills, is have them think about what they're going to do, where they're going to go, who they're going to call. Kids now don't carry their cell phones in the classroom. They have to put it in a lockbox before they go in the classroom. So where are they going to go? How are they going to walk down the halls? Are they going to put their bodies against the walls? Or are they going to be in the middle of the wall? You know, are they going to be the hero, or are they going to be whatever? So,
Right. So some pre-flight planning. So
yes, pre-flight planning.
Yes. So going into any situation, if we're going to fly, do a mission, if we're going anywhere, we talk about the pre-flight. What's the surrounding? What is the weather? So what is the temperature of the school that day? How much drama is going on? What do you hear that's happening? Is it a day that you go to school, or is it a day that you get on the app because you've heard some things and you actually talk about it so adults can investigate and just do it anonymously?
Right.
This is a time where you said it in the beginning, and I would have done the same thing. If I heard something in the hallway back in the 80s, I probably wouldn't have done anything. But now you have to be more proactive. You have to keep your ear to the ground, because that could be the difference between a good day or extremely bad day.
Yeah, for sure.
We talked about before social media in terms of building connections as opposed to leaving people out. You know, how many kids when we were growing up were being bullied, or the kids that looked a little different or odd were the ones being singled out all the time. Those are the ones you got to pull in closer to the circle, right? So I think those are some pre-flight tips. I think nowadays, if kids are not thinking about, if they have a group of kids, I'm going to give kudos to my son on the first or second week of school. There was a kid who wasn't in a group, and my son came up to the kid and said, "Do you want to be in our group?" And the teacher saw it. So, you know, those are the kids that stand out, that want to take that leadership role. Don't get me wrong, the next week he did something totally opposite that negated that. So,
of course he did.
Of course he did.
Of course.
But have those moments where, you know, that's useful. So that's pretty awesome. That's good. That's good advice.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember this was when my kids were super little. I went to a self-defense. Took them to self-defense class, and it was like a 6-week course or something like that. And there was this one day where they had a trunk of a car, right? And they literally tried to lift my daughter and put her in the car, and she had to fight her way out of it, basically to get her muscle memory to remember how to protect herself in a situation like that. And, or if a bully came up and like started to harass you, how you could get your way out of a situation. And I think that's really, really important. Kind of changing topics from your connection thing, but I think that going back to what we had talked about earlier is just building that muscle memory and knowing that you're able to get yourself out of tough situations.
I like it. So you talked about, at one point you talked about deep breathing. So if I didn't know how to breathe through stuff, and sometimes I just scream into the void or in my pillow, how would you talk me through deep breathing exercise?
I'm a firm believer if we can control our breath, we can control everything. You know, and if we are in control of nothing, we can control our breath. And that gives us a lot of power because that comes from just our essence, basically, right? So I actually have a 30-second test for you. Okay.
Okay.
Let's do this. So I'm going to do the third. Well, we can do it for like 15. Let's do 15 seconds, right? Because we have our 30 seconds. So what I want you to do is just take, and you guys can follow along at home. Breathe in through your nose, out through your mouth, just a normal breath. And then hold your breath, and we're going to count for 30 seconds.
Oh, take a deep breath in?
Nope, no breath in. Just in through your nose, out through your mouth, and then hold your breath. So basically what we're doing right now is we are testing Merrill's fight-flight response. And so what ends up happening for a lot of people about 10 seconds in, that they start to feel a little panicky inside. Not normal people that have trained to fly YouTube. Are you at 30 seconds? You're panicking? I don't know. How long's it been? Think about right there, I guess. All right, how was that?
I ran out of air.
Okay. So basically, for that 30-second test, what ends up happening for a lot of people, if they don't have a regulated nervous system, at about 10, 15 seconds, they start to feel a little panicky, where they do start gasping for air. So at the end of this, when you gasp for air, basically says your nervous system is a little dysregulated, because a regulated nervous system would be able to resume breathing normally.
Yeah.
So in that moment, in that 30-second span, that raised your adrenaline, that raised your cortisol, because your body is then now thinking there's a threat happening. Because when we're, I'm the threat?
Because you don't know my breath.
She keeps talking about how she's like scared of the psych, right? But basically what happens is when we are in a fight state, we stop breathing. And so our bodies then think, okay, we're about to fight this bear, right? And so you were basically telling your body there's a threat coming by not breathing for 30 seconds,
right.
Obviously. But at the same time, you can train yourself to regulate through that. So that we do by deep breathing exercises, where we breathe in through the nose, but we use the diaphragm, versus a lot of people take a deep breath, and then they hold it, and it's all from the neck up, versus breathing from the diaphragm. And actually what ends up happening, have you ever tried to tell somebody that's in a panic attack to take a deep breath? It doesn't work.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. Because they're so dysregulated at the time that the thought of even taking a deep breath can even dysregulate them more. So we want to practice anything rhythmic and repetitive first, but also trying to really train the body to just naturally breathe on the own. So back to your original question, I went on a whole long tangent because I'm good at that. But basically, if we were learning to breathe after, let's say, a perceived threat, a active shooter drill or something like that, what you just want to do simply is just in through your nose, where you expand your diaphragm, though. And you want to blow it up like a Buddha belly, and then exhale. And so we always want to try to make the exhale longer than the inhale. So if we inhale for 4, we exhale for 6. Some people can't do that. Navy SEALs use the combat breathing, which is basically 4x4 breathing. So in through the nose for 4, hold for 4, out for 4, and then repeat 4 times, or as many times as necessary. And that looks something like in through the nose, hold for 4, exhale for 4, and then repeat. Or you can do a grounding exercise, which is basically naming, using your senses, naming the things around you. So 5 things you see, 4 things you hear, 3 things you taste or touch, 2 things you smell, 1 thing you taste. Yeah. So a grounding exercise.
I've never done that before.
You've never done a grounding exercise?
No. Have you done that in the military? No, they just beat us into submission.
The other thing I like to
I like that.
Yeah, the other thing I like to teach, especially young kiddos that are easily dysregulated, is to pick a color of the day And so when they're finding themselves go into their fight or flight, let's say their color is blue, right? And so if they're freaking out because they got a D on the test and they're just totally crying, mom's going to kick my butt, whatever that is, basically they can start practicing and telling themselves blue. And so they have to look through the room to find something blue.
Oh.
So that's kind of another grounding, but just like a Cliff Note version of grounding.
I like it for younger kids.
For younger kids. The other thing that's always really great is anything that's bilateral. So I teach little kids too with like the butterfly hug or butterfly taps. I'm probably going to tap my microphone. I think we did this before, but basically we're regulating the nervous system bilaterally. They can even do it on their legs. Just back and forth, alternate. That helps the nervous system too.
Okay.
Yep. All right.
So screaming into the void is not one of them.
Well, you can always do that too. I don't know how you can scream in the classroom though. That might get you in a little bit more trouble.
That might get you in a little bit more trouble. Yes. Unless the teacher just says, okay, class, let's just yell it out.
Mm-hmm. That's true. That'd be cool.
So these are things that teachers can do at the end of a drill. I don't know if they're required to. I'm not sure.
I've never heard my kids talk about that as something they do after.
I don't know if that is possible in schools. Maybe something teachers should consider.
Yeah, 100%.
To help get them. But thank you for those tips.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to be breathing like a Navy SEAL.
There you go.
4x4x4.
That's a song. But 4x4 by you. Lainey Wilson to plug. No, just kidding.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
What year was this?
Like 2024. You're not a country fan.
No, I'm not. Sorry.
No.
I do listen. No, I do like
Lainey
Tennessee
Wilson?
Whiskey. Chris Stapleton.
Of course you do.
He's really good. Anyway. So.
I do. I like Crystal Stapleton too.
Well, okay, we're digressing. But thank you so much.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, no, those are great. We'll call some of those out. And no, thank you so much for sharing and sharing some of the technique. So to reiterate, pre-flight planning, know the space that you're in, know the temperature of the day or the weather.
That, yeah.
And understand where those points are throughout the day, where you're going to be for either escape points, hide points, what you're going to do. Maybe run through it in your mind in a safe environment. Talk with your parents. And once the lockdown drill occurs, you gave methods to breathe through, to be able to go to and from the sympathetic to the parasympathetic nervous system to kind of increase the bandwidth of how you stay in there and to regulate.
Yeah, and just to kind of note that can be used in increasing your bandwidth in any stressful type situation. So running late for school, tests, dropping your lunch in the lunchroom, all of those things can be used during that time, any stressful type of event.
Right.
The other thing I just clicked in on while you were talking about the rundown, I think that, again, going back to the safety planning or pre-flight planning, it is really essential to have conversations with your kids about the plan. I remember this was a few years back, something had happened at the school and I can't remember exactly what it was. I was at work and didn't have my phone. And all the kids needed to be escorted off of campus. And so my daughter's calling me nonstop and I didn't have my phone with me. And no way for her to contact me. And so she actually went home with a friend of hers. And then later I found out that that's where she was there. But we had a trusted family member that she could have gone with, which I think is really, really important, is to make sure you have a plan if something happens.
Absolutely, 100%. With my kids, always have a plan. Always have someone that they can rely on, another adult that's trusted, a trusted agent. Code words.
Code words.
Our family has a code word that we only know. So if someone comes up to them, we have that. I will not divulge that today.
No. Yeah, I think, and it sounds silly, but all that pre-planning is so essential because then it becomes automatic when a threat does occur.
Absolutely. It's just like flying an aircraft. How do we do it? We call it chair flying. If you see pilots before a flight, they'll maybe talk to themselves. They're walking around a room. Their hands are doing this when you make fun of pilots. Or we're sitting in a chair, clicking different switches. It's part of the pre-flight planning. So
yeah, that muscle memory. Yeah.
So the more you do that, the more likely you will react in a certain emergency when it happens. And, we practice emergencies in the military in flight training all the time. And we discuss it and we talk about it every day. So if we're doing that there, do it with your kid at home. Kids, do it with your parents. Do it with people that you trust. So when the time comes, you're as prepared as possible.
Exactly.
Well, Shea, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
For those tips, and I appreciate it.
Yes, for sure.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's it for Breaking Formation today. Tune in next time when we talk about college. College life. Or is it college?
Is it college?
Maybe.
Maybe.
Take care, guys.
Bye. See you next time.